Hi, this is Richard Murray with another session of Parking Lot Theology. I want to tackle a very tough question today. It's one you see asked quite a bit, and it's this. Why did Jesus die? Did we in fact kill Jesus? Was it necessary for Jesus to die? Well, let me start off with this statement that Jesus made that's very, very clear. He said, "No man takes my life from me, but I lay it down freely." And we know that no greater love has any person than that they lay their life down for our friends. So why did he lay his life down? It wasn't an arbitrary decision for him to die. All right. There was a reason, a purpose, a dynamic that was being fulfilled. And I don't think we approach it from that direction like we should. So let's get the nonsense out of the way first. No one killed Jesus against his will. All right. No, he said I could have legions of angels down here if my kingdom was released into this world, but he wasn't going to do it. That there was a reason, a purpose he laid his life down. Well, some people say, well, you mean violence? He somehow committed violence? No, the violence was committed on him. All right. So why did he lay his life down? Now, this is the new, fresh insight that you don't hear preached a lot, but when people do touch it, boy, I just see it have such a good reaction. And it's this: there is a dynamic that is weaved into creation, that God put into creation, and this dynamic keeps this creation from ultimately going askew in some sort of eternal sense. And the dynamic is this: that when you are wronged, when you are victimized, you then acquire power over your enemy. But it's not power as the world uses power. It's power of access. It's power of access into the deeper levels of the psyche or the heart or the emotions of your oppressor. This is why Romans says, don't take vengeance on somebody in the fleshly sense, but overcome evil with good. For by so doing, you will heap coals on their head. And I like to call these cathartic coals. Catharsis is that beautiful word which describes when you have an epiphany, an emotional and mental epiphany just with your whole being, and you're able to release guilt and you're able to release frustration as you interact with the Lord and just turn it over to Him. And so these cathartic coals, if I wrong somebody and they're spiritual and they stay spiritual, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but as long as they respond in a spiritual way, they in a way have purchased me. All right. By being a victim of me, they have purchased me. And if they pray for me, and if they do good towards me, and if they, bless me and pray for me, and the things that Jesus says in Matthew 5:38 through 48, he says all these things you do to be like your Father, so that you may be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. And then the previous 10 verses, he defines what that perfection is. And it's the love of the enemy. It's the praying of the enemy. It's turning the other cheek and not responding eye for an eye. Now, if somebody wrongs me and I respond eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth, I have no access over them. I have no power over them. In fact, they have power over me because I've become them. I've done the same thing back to them. But if I act in an opposite spirit, and that opposite spirit means that I respond in love, then my prayers become more effectual for that person. My blessings become more powerful blessings than other people can shoot their way. This is the strange, wonderfully strange thing that God has put in this, that the people you have the most authority to intercede for are people who have wronged you. Now, you also have authority to intercede for family and for other people and, love. I mean, there's tons of levels of intercession. But I believe with all my heart that the deepest level, the most profound authority you have is over your enemies. All right. You are the one that can convert your enemies. And as you pray for them, you're heaping these coals of cathartic conviction over their thoughts that can cure their thoughts, that can send noble impulses, that can send impulses of curative energy over them that can help them and lead them into a path of righteousness. So, in a way, it's the most powerful victims' rights manifesto ever, that even though we may be victimized by violent, cruel, hostile men, by so doing, we have purchased them. See, and that's why Jesus died. He laid his life down so that he could purchase us, so that he could purchase the access into our free wills. All right. He hasn't coerced us. He didn't come here. He's not going to kick our thoughts over and kick our doors in. But by laying his life down, we see this dynamic of love, this dynamic of perfection that Jesus called it in Matthew 5:38 through 48. This perfect dynamic that allows us to conquer our enemies by love. So that when you're wrong, just remember this. The next time somebody wrongs you, try to remember this. You have purchased some aspect of their soul, potentially. Now, for you to make that purchase final, you have to pray for them in the Spirit, and you have to love them in the Spirit, and you have to bless them in the Spirit, and with an earnest motive, and not out boldly talking about it, but just doing it in a sincere way. We see people all the time who have been wronged, killers who have killed family members, and you see the Christian mothers and fathers make a statement in court that they totally forgive the person. I mean, can you imagine the cathartic conviction that goes on these people's head, these wrongdoers' heads? So just remember, we are so much more powerful as victims than we are as power brokers. Okay, and this idea of ransom and this idea of purchase, that we purchase that by being wronged, we have suddenly gotten an investment in the people that have wronged us, and that's an awesome responsibility for us as victims is to use that wisely and to pray with Jesus. And Jesus is the ultimate victim, but he only appears to be the victim. Really, the reason he was victimized is so that he can have direct access to all our souls, to the deeper parts of our being. And that's where his Spirit operates. He's purchased that access, and the Spirit today is in the world fulfilling that, trying to bring all men, to reconcile all men, want to be Christ all in all.